Welcome to the Pole Nation Lambo with the sports feature and Big Brother feature Silent Sports Network. Recap of Week 7 college football. Oregon does not punt the ball on fourth down. I don't get that play calling. A rollout to his left on 4th and 6, which is a 10% chance of a completion. I mean, you're rolling out and there's only like 2 receivers. And if you're playing some type of coverage, it's not going to work. Michigan found a formula. We're not talking enough with J.J. McCarthy. I think he's one of the top-tier quarterbacks along the line. We're not talking about him enough. I get it. They're not playing very good competition teams, but J.J. McCarthy is not a bum. I think he was better than, the Cade McNamara and the other quarterback that they had. They did 10 times better. I mean, Michigan has won, 24 games, dating the last year, including like 12 wins the year before. They'll probably win 12 games again. And then they won like 11 the year prior to that. I'm going to switch gears on this one. First, we need to talk about Virginia Tech. You get all the jitters out, all right? And all you haters think, I'm not saying Virginia Tech is back and all that. We still got some work to do. But, ladies and gentlemen, that defense, it's the defense I want to see, all right? I understand it's not the Bud Foster defense that we've seen. They got a new defensive coordinator and all that. And Brent Price sometimes calls the defense. Sometimes he doesn't. He let his assistants call the defense. I watch him on the sideline. He's just sitting back, letting his coaches do his thing. But the turnovers, I'm telling you, the interception was great. The fumble recovery was great. We put pressure on the quarterback. Not only that, but Kyron Drones is the face of Virginia Tech. And thank God we ain't got to hear no more about the whole Grant Wells stuff. Now, I wish he recovers fully. I'm not hating on the man. I wish he fully recovers healthy. But you're not that guy. You need to hit the transfer portal. Go to the transfer portal. Kyron Jones is that guy, ladies and gentlemen. He, by the way, he had a fumble. He didn't lose it, but he's not throwing interceptions. He's throwing with the offense. Now, I still think Tyler Bowen needs to be maybe somewhat fired, but the play calling it's good for now until, you fuck it up against Syracuse 2 weeks later or maybe, Louisville, NC State, UVA. It's good for right now, but I'm not sold on him keeping his job, all right? The run game was combined of 141 yards in total, but the pass game, Jalen Lane with 2 touchdowns. Oh, my God, 2 touchdowns. And after we gave up that horrendous kickoff return for a touchdown, I mean, my God. I mean, after that, first play, hit a shotgun, slant route, boom down the field. And then to end the game, we have another screen that was called on 36, and that ended the game. There was still some key mistakes in that Tech and Wake Forest game, like some mental errors that you normally do not make. If it wasn't for that, I think Wake Forest only have 6 points. So take away that kickoff that you messed up on. I think Wake Forest only have 6 points. We stopped a very good offense. The quarterback did get hurt. Wish him well. We knocked him out the game. I think it was great. What are your thoughts on this game? And does Tech have the momentum going in their favor, or are we being a little bit too high on, whatnot?
Nah, dude. I mean, coming from a guy that has seen this team be literally like last in the country in scoring, in just everything that has to do with the offense, we were last in basically like in the country for the past couple years. To see us put up 30 points multiple times in a couple weeks. And I get it. We didn't compete after the third quarter against Florida State, but to not give up there and to put up a good effort in that game, I think we're going in the right direction. Obviously, the season started very shaky. Like Purdue, we should have won. Marshall should have won, and we didn't. So, a couple mental things, which was the case when I talked about Virginia Tech in August, dude. Last year, we were a couple freak plays with Grant Wells away from, winning 2 more games. And then we were a couple coaching decisions away from winning another 2 more games. we could have won 7 or 8 games last year. Well, same thing with the beginning of this season, and it seems like we're fixing that, which is awesome. Never pumped to be 3-4, obviously, but considering that like our line was basically 3 games this year of what people were predicting we were going to win, to have that done already with like I think a pretty doable chance of getting to 6 wins this year and getting back to a bowl game in just the second year of having Pry is just amazing. Obviously, Kyron balled out, but I'm with you. Let me talk about this defense, dude. I've got some stats pulled up here. So like I've been saying for a couple weeks, we're a top 10 team when it comes to pass defense in the country based on yards allowed. But it's more than that, dude. Fumbles forced per game, we're 17th. Sacks per game, we're 18th. Tackles for loss per game, 24th. First downs allowed per game, 28th. Passing touchdowns allowed, 34th. Average passer rating, 34th. Like we are top 40 and in other cases, top 25, top 10, top 20 in multiple stats, not just in the secondary, which is where I thought all of our success was coming. But that's really not the case. And to show the offense a little bit of love as well, as a team, we've only thrown 3 interceptions, 2 of those coming from Grant. That's 14th in the country. If it was just Kyron, I'm sure it would be top 5. I mean, there's got to be a few teams maybe that have only 1 interception. Time of possession, we're top 40. Fourth down percentage, we're 38th. Red zone scoring percentage, we're putting points on the board 85% of the time in the red zone, regardless of touchdown or field goal. We're getting points on the board 85% of the time. So the offense is coming along as well. Here we are in total defense. Nope, already read that. Sorry. Yeah, sacks. This is the big thing. So obviously, Antwell Power Island had a big game last week, but the team as a whole is already up to 22 sacks, which has us 7th in the country right now. And last year we had 23 total. Year before that, we had 25 total. We're at 22 already after week 7. So, I mean, there's just so many positives to take away from what's been going on the past couple weeks. I mean, the defense allowed 35 rushing yards. Obviously, we didn't play, a star-studded backfield, but ODU didn't really. I mean, ODU does have a good running back, but they don't have some awesome Power 5 guy, and they put up 200 rushing yards on us. Like that has been the issue, and so to see the team only allow 35 rushing yards. Like you said, generate all those turnovers, and just be in the top 25 in so many defensive categories, be in the top 40 in the country in a bunch of offensive categories. Plus, we have a top 35 recruiting class right now. I think that the vibes are high in Blacksburg for sure. Vibes are high. I think people can see the direction that Pry is taking us. And there's nothing there is obviously a few things. Bowen has to continue with the good play calling. He can't just get away with it after like 3 weeks of good play calling. He's got to actually, it's got to be a continued success thing for him to, just be off the hot seat that easy. But I think we've gone into 2 games with a lot of heat behind his name. And in both of those games, he's gone out and the offense has put up 30 points. So, he's answering the call when he needs to. And if I think everyone just gets better, coaches involved, like it looks like we can, then we're on a good track for sure.
Man, they got a bye week this week, but I will be there for Syracuse on Thursday. Like I said, you'll probably be there too. You probably got class and whatnot. They should just have you cancel class on Thursday. I mean,
Yeah, they probably will.
They're good because there's no point in going to class. And by the way, the stuff is great. I won't say it on camera, but the stuff is great. I appreciate you. I think I was being a little bit ungrateful, but I never had that before. So I stuck with that. It is great. And I'll talk about that off camera. I'm sorry. But by the way, Georgia versus Vanderbilt. Now, Brock Byers does have an injury, but they scored 27 straight points to beat Vanderbilt. Now it was tied at 7-7. They scored 17 in the second quarter. This wasn't really close. I mean, I understand the score was maybe a little closer than I thought it was, but you lose your tight end, it kind of hurts to a core. And I think it would bother him. Like I said, they run the ball just fine. I mean, you had 146 yards rush for Dejon Edwards. You threw the ball just fine. Vanderbilt didn't play that bad of a game. They competed the way they wanted to compete, even though it wasn't a win. They're not good. They're 2-6, obviously. But is Georgia going to lose a game going? What are your thoughts on this game? Is Georgia going to lose a game going forward? I understand they have an easy schedule going forward. They play Tennessee the second week to the last week of the regular season. No Brock Bryers. Could they possibly lose one game before getting to the college football playoff and the SEC championship?
Maybe. Carson Beck is playing out of his mind. He's playing very well. He's, what is he, 4th in the country in passing yards. He's thrown 4 interceptions in 7 games, so take that as you will. It's not that bad, I don't think. They do play Florida next week, and I think we both expect a win. Well, this week, I should say, and I do think we both expect them to win. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, outside of this Florida game, and then you have Tennessee as well, I'm not seeing too many games on this schedule that have me scared. But it is a pretty, it's 3 ranked opponents in a row after this week. And Florida was just ranked, 2 weeks ago. So I'm not going to say that they lose. I don't think they do, just because they're so deep at every single position. Even at tight end, like I get losing Brock is huge. Just because he's the best at his position in the country, will be a very high draft pick. But it's not like they don't have other 5-star tight ends behind him. Like they've got depth. I'm not saying you can just replace him, but it's what gives me faith that they won't lose a game. Because, I didn't expect it to be this tough on the way out for Georgia, like at the beginning of the year when I was looking at their schedule. But Florida isn't just going to roll over, but I do think Georgia wins that. Missouri's ranked. Ole Miss is 13th. Tennessee is 17th. And then, rivalry game Georgia Tech at the end. I don't think, that's that one might get out of hand. But, I mean, they don't have the easiest way out. But I do trust them.
All right. Now, there's not much to talk about with the Michigan and Indiana game. But with Michigan looking good, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, they got the defense. Everything's great. Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games earlier this season. Understanding schedule is not, as competitive as we get it. Georgia isn't competitive either. Their schedule going forward for Michigan, they have Michigan State next week. They play Penn State on the 11th, and then Ohio State. Now, Penn State and Ohio State could be the potential teams they lose to. I think they'll beat Ohio State again for 3 years in a row. Penn State could be maybe either way. We'll see how Penn State does against Ohio State. Does Michigan have a chance to win the national championship?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You said it a couple minutes ago. J.J. McCarthy isn't getting enough talk. And that might be because he's tucked up in the corner of Michigan and all they want to talk about up there is Jim. But he's got 195.9 passer rating right now. I don't know what the max is, but I'm pretty sure it's like 210 or something like that. So yeah, he's throwing the ball very efficiently. He's got 14 touchdowns to 3 picks, 1,500 yards at almost 80% completion. So, he's playing phenomenal, easily one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure he's pretty young. He's a junior. My fault. He just has been in the quarterback mix. Either way, he's playing out of his mind. And I do think the defense, it's been like this for years, but they have a good defense that can, aid the offense and the offense can aid the defense. When it comes to like we were talking about with Colorado, The defense did their job in the first half. They didn't allow any points. And if the offense could help them out in the second half by running clock off, by running plays, and just gaining first downs on the ground, they win the games. Michigan can do that. They go into the second half, and the offense is able to run. The offensive line has been good for years. The run game has been solid for years, and now they have a quarterback who's at the top of the most important stats at the quarterback position, basically, in the country in quarterback rating, completion percentage, and lack of interceptions. So, I think that they have, like you said, not the hardest schedule finishing out the year. So it's very likely that they go into the playoff with one loss max. And I think that would be Ohio State, but I think that they would beat Ohio State right now, though. So I definitely think they're the second best team. And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago. If Georgia didn't have obviously 2 rings in a row, and we were just judging on what we've seen this year from Georgia and not what comes with the name Georgia, I think Michigan would be ranked number 1 in the country.
But I do agree.
I think it's just because, I think it's just because there is, the prowess that comes with being Georgia. And obviously you've earned that with 2 consecutive national championships. But I think that the teams this far into the year, I think Michigan is the best team. So I definitely think they have one of the best chances of winning the championship.
Well, Alabama and Arkansas was a very close game. Now, Alabama does what Alabama does. Arkansas was on the verge of coming back. They were down. Alabama was down early, of course. They've been down early for a while. KJ Jefferson was a problem. That's why I said they combined for 100 yards, rushing, and, they only had 252 yards of offense. But I said it was going to be a close game last year because KJ Jefferson is a problem. Even though Arkansas is not winning, he broke off a great sack, by the way. Nick Saban gave credit to KJ Jefferson because he's just big and huge, and he just, it's hard he's kind of like a Cam Newton. He's hard for him to bring him down and all this stuff. But, Alabama, Jalen Monroe is playing better. There's still some iffy about the passing and whatnot. He had to throw an interception. They had a fumble, didn't lose it. They run the ball for 177 yards in total. Jalen Monroe's QBR is not up there. He's doing what he's doing. He's not turning the ball over like we saw against Texas and Texas A&M. He's not making the many mistakes. He's getting better. We're not talking about Alabama enough. I know they lost the non-conference in Texas, and we shitted them in the bed like they weren't any good. And, they got a new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees. They're making adjustments on offensive line. The defense is better after the Texas game. They do play Tennessee. That's not a very easy game. It's at home this year because last year it was on the road and they lost. Both teams have one loss, but they still, with Alabama, they got LSU going forward. And, of course, they got Auburn. Can Alabama be back in the top 4?
I don't know. Not if they keep winning games like this. And I'm not saying it has to be a 3-point win or whatever, but as shitty as it is to be 6-1, when you are Alabama, your wins are looked at much differently than most other teams in the country. You can win as many games as you want by 3 points. You're probably going to be around, this 11 to 7 spot. It's the quality of the win matters. And that's just the fact of the matter. Jalen Milroe, he's shown improvement a little bit in, like you said, decision-making, not turning the ball over. But at the same time, I feel like, Alabama has 5 stars up and down this offense, especially in the skill position area. And I feel like the receivers are a little bit held back. Now, 238 is fine. That's a perfectly fine stat line when it comes to yards, but he was 48% throwing the ball. And that's just not, an Alabama level quarterback. And obviously we've seen him have better games than this statistically, but we've seen him have worse games than this as well. So, when your leading receiver has 2 catches, it's just like, why? We're playing a team that is not close to how good we are at all, especially when it comes to just straight up matchups of who's guarding my guys, that corner versus my receiver, who do I want? And when it's Arkansas versus Bama, you can go along pretty much every single skill position. You want that guy over who's guarding them. So for their leading receiver to have 2 catches, and the offense ran the ball well, that's fine. But I think the quarterback position needs, not that they can make a change, I don't think, and make immediate progress, but I do think that there needs to be improvement pretty quickly from the quarterback room if they want to sneak back into that top, maybe 6 area. But I think if they play like this, there's no shot they're getting to that, let alone top 4.
Well, Oregon failed on 4th down. Oregon played a perfect game as far as turnover-free football on offense. Dan Lanning, why in the fuck would you go for it on 4th and 6, and then your play call is a bootleg to the left, and it was incomplete, and then you gave Michael Penix a short field, and he throws a late touchdown? I said it. Oregon was up, but Oregon has been having problems with Washington for a while, and it was a close game, but I was like, Washington's going to do something, Oregon's going to mess up what they have in the past. They both of these teams combined offensively. If you both look at it offensively, I think they combined for at least 900 yards combined of offense. We knew they was going to get a lot of yards. This wasn't going to be a defensive game. Does this determine who's the better quarterback, Michael Penix or Bo Nix? And why did Oregon go for it on 4th down? I mean, don't. It's the common sense part to punt the ball, make them at least go 95 yards, because Washington had no timeout. So why are you going for it? Washington has no timeouts. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, they had, let alone that decision, which obviously is just like boneheaded and mind-blowing that that's what he decided to do. I already thought Michael Penix was a better quarterback than Bo Nix. I think I've been kind of vocal on that a little bit on my not dislike or distrust of Bo Nix, just like we've seen him, and now we see him obviously on a better playing much better than he ever has. But I just think, based on this season and past seasons, I think it, in my opinion, is pretty clear that Penix is just a better thrower of the ball. But when you win the turnover battle, you got to win the game, in my opinion. And Oregon did, and they couldn't finish it at the end. They were in a position to win. Obviously, you couldn't get the first. That's fine. I'm with you. Make them march the entire field. I mean, I get it because the defense had been torched, but it's also not like Penix. Like, this wasn't Penix's best game. He did have 316 yards, but he was barely above 50 when it comes to completion percentage. And he was also like, he threw an interception, which it's not like, oh, he sucks, he threw an interception. I'm just saying this is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. It's not often that you get that opportunity with a guy like this, and you did, and you have to be able to capitalize on that, especially when you don't turn the ball over at all, and they just couldn't do it. And I mean, I thought Penix was a better quarterback going into this, but I thought Oregon was a better team. And I think that this game didn't really change too much. I mean, obviously, Washington goes up in the rankings, and Oregon only falls 1 spot to 9 because of how good this game was. Washington's up to 5, deservedly so. With actually, they had 2 first-place votes, which is kind of funny. Georgia had 43, Michigan had 16, and then Ohio State had 1 first place vote, Florida State had 1, and Washington had 2 first place votes. So, I mean, and it is because they play a Pac-12 schedule, which this isn't normal, but this year, a Pac-12 schedule is one of the hardest schedules in the country. That's not something that you say every year at all. It's always, oh, this SEC schedule is always tough. But kind of from what we've seen, a lot of these SEC schedules are pretty soft this year. And you look at even ACC schedules, you've got like 6 ranked guys on there because the ACC has gotten deeper. The Pac-12 is obviously like the second best division in football this year, if not the best. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have to concede to Washington right now being the better team over Oregon, but I don't know if this game really moved the needle for me too much when it comes to like what I think of either team. I think this is exactly how I thought it would go. I made my money on the over. I told you that was going to happen. It sucks you didn't put the bet in. But yeah, I mean, super good game. It was fun to watch. And I mean, 2 Heisman caliber quarterbacks were battling it out.
Well, Tennessee is back, I guess, a little bit. I know Miss Sarah Blake Cheek went to that game, and Tennessee beat A&M. A&M has lost 2 straight. They lost to the ACC in Miami. That was a couple weeks back, but they lost to Alabama and lost to Tennessee. They gave up a punt return for a touchdown. When you lose your quarterback, like I said, they don't have their starting quarterback, and Wegman, he's out for the year. Like I said before, this was a toss-up, but when Max Johnson has 2 interceptions, you barely ran the ball for 54 yards in total, you're not going to win. Joe Milton still, he barely did anything as well. He only had 100 yards passing with 1 touchdown, 1 pick. But when you run the ball for 232 yards, I mean, my God. What's wrong with A&M? Now, is Jimbo Fisher on the hot seat now? I mean, there's 2 straight losses. They had the game won in Alabama. I mean, at home against Alabama. And this came down to a punt return for a go-ahead touchdown. They gave up 232 yards on the ground. Is he on a hot seat despite the quarterback being out for the year? Because his buyout contract is a lot of money. It's around $75-80 million. Do you let him go after bringing in Bobby Paterno as the OC? He's not calling the plays. He's letting Bobby Paterno, who was the former Louisville coach for Lamar Jackson, call the plays. Is Jimbo Fisher done after this season?
So I think the quarterback situation definitely extends like the level of patience people have with him. Just because I understand the defense did allow over 200 yards on the ground, but like you said, it came down to them returning a kick. Like it wasn't the defense that allowed all these points and then your offense suffers and you can't overcome. The defense, while they were bending, did not break, which I think is when you go along to like any of the top defensive coordinators, starting with Bud Foster, and then you can go to the same thing that Bama did for a few years and or emphasized vocally for a few years and stuff. Bend but don't break. And that's the same thing as the NFL as well. You can bend, you can allow yards, but if you don't let them score, it doesn't matter. And that's what the A&M defense did this weekend. Like you said, 1 touchdown in the air, 100 yards, 50%, and an interception from the quarterback, who I've been vocal about, I don't think is the best. Whatever, we can get into that another time. But when it comes to, rushing, 232 is awesome. No rushing touchdowns. And they only had 1 in the air. So it's just like, how much can you put this on him specifically when your offense is handicapped without your top or without your general that would be leading your team and your quarterback? So I think that would extend the level of patience people have with Jimbo. But I will say, after multiple years of, like the number 1 class 2 years ago, and then last year they were top 15. I think when we did the video, they were like 6th or something this year so far. When you bring in the level of talent that they're bringing in, and those guys from 2 years ago, I'm sure a lot of them redshirted and some of them didn't. So those guys are going to be getting into the starting lineup either this year or next year. So I think next year's more the make or break time. You're the people that are going to be on the field will be the number 1 recruiting class in the country. So I think next year's the make or break for me, just because that is going to be the truest test, I think, of what this coaching staff is really about. Because we've seen the hype, obviously, behind Jimbo and the success he's had in the past. But, like he's had up and down. Obviously, like COVID was wild. Everyone had bad year during COVID.
His best year was COVID. They only lost 1 game.
That's what I mean. Like everyone had a bad year during COVID. He had his 1 good game. And since then or 1 good season, I should say. And then since then, it's kind of been a roller coaster. And it's the opposite of what you would expect from a coach of his respect. I think not that he's lucky, but I think if this season went a similar way with their starting quarterback, then yeah, I would say his ass would be very hot. And so not that he's fortunate to have lost his top quarterback, but I do think it preserves him a little bit longer with like how long the leash is with what they allow from him.
Well, this is the upset we that nobody else is talking about. Pittsburgh, they're 2-4, or they were 1-4 after getting their ass whooped by Virginia Tech. They beat Louisville. Now we thought Louisville was the top tier. They beat Notre Dame at home. Louisville really stumped us up pretty bad. The quarterback had 2 picks. They had 1 receiver for 120 yards. They threw the ball for 350. They ran the ball for 80. New quarterback in place, by the way, because I think the recent quarterback against Virginia Tech went to play tight end wide receiver. So new quarterback.
Yeah. We made him switch positions. We whooped his ass so bad he had to switch positions.
Yes. So he actually didn't play bad. Christian Bellix, he didn't play bad at all, despite probably his first game. Not sure what the Pittsburgh schedule was. They had a bye week after the ass whooping. Is Louisville? Are they a good? They're a good team, obviously. They got a new head coach from Jeff Brom. He's a former Louisville alumni guy. Is Louisville still that team? Now I don't know if they'll compete for the AC championship, but are they a good, decent team, or did they get exposed?
Well, I think both can be true in this. They did get exposed because I don't know how your defense is good in the sense of you're forcing the opposing quarterback to throw the ball at 45% and barely got to 200 yards, and you keep them to only 88 yards rushing. But your offense doesn't help your defense out at all, and it gives them the ball back twice through interceptions and then, again with a fumble. So yeah, they got exposed in that I think they came into this game sleeping. I think they came into this game not taking it as seriously as they should have because they are clearly a better team than Pitt, and their defense, I think, would have had them in the right position to do it, but their offense just fell short. 288 total yards from a defense is great. The 4 touchdowns you can obviously do without, but that also comes on top of, short field for Pitt's offense when you turn the ball over 3 times. So I think, I don't know if this exposes Louisville as not being like worthy of a ranked team. Like obviously they're still they're 21st right now. And they're still a top level school in the ACC. I definitely think that to be the case. But I think they came into this game just sleeping. I think they were underestimating their opponent and they just played sloppy. or the offense did, I should say. The defense played very well, I think.
Auburn versus LSU. Now, Auburn under Hugh Freeze, it's rebuilding. We didn't expect Auburn to do anything, but LSU and Jaden Daniels, their offense is pretty nasty. And Kyron Lacey went off. Logan Diggs ran the ball. Jaden Daniels ran the ball as well. I know you're not a big Brian Kelly fan, but can LSU beat Alabama again going forward? And if LSU wins the rest of their games, can they play in some type of New Year's Six Bowl maybe? And not only that, are we sold on LSU? I know I wasn't sold on them earlier this year, but have they gotten better? I understand it's 18 points. We rated the defense being completely awful, but this is a Auburn team that's they've been competitive, but they've been up and down. They play Army next week. The game to watch on November 4th is Alabama, and they still have Florida, and they still have Texas A&M. Can they win the rest of the games going forward?
So, like I said earlier about Bama, I think that goes very well for LSU. I think they are in a position to where they could play that game very close just because their defense, I think, could disrupt Milroe in Bama. I think the Army game, if they treat it correctly, will be a good tune-up for Alabama because they're going to have to get that run defense obviously set up nice because Bama can run the ball. If Milroe's recent play says anything, they're going to have to run the ball. And then on the flip side, Bama's defense has been good all year. So it's going to be a challenge for the LSU offense for sure. But Neighbors is just an animal. I mean, he's an alien. And obviously QB1 over here at LSU is a dog. So I think they can win the Texas A&M game I shouldn't say easily because Texas A&M is still stacked, obviously, but that'll be a tight game. I think I would lean LSU. Obviously, they'll whoop Georgia State. Florida, I lean LSU, but Florida's been a surprise team for us so far. And then obviously you have Bama. So do I think they can win out? Yes. Do I think they will win out? No. I think I'd still go Bama over them right now. And if they do pull out that Bama win, it as shitty as it sounds, it kind of like lowers my level of trust that they'll win those last 3 games in a row. Like I'm not talking about Georgia State. I obviously think that they'll beat Georgia State. But something about it, just like if they beat Bama, something about like just the LSU vibe of the past few years just has me thinking they'll lose to Florida or Texas A&M.
Well, next game, we're not talking about this team enough either. Missouri unranked upset Kentucky, but they're 6-1. I mean, Missouri is a great team this year. Now, they've been down. They competed with Georgia last year. They weren't very good. They almost beat Georgia last year, but this Missouri team is great. I mean, they had a fake punt. Brady Cook is going off in Missouri. I mean, they beat Kansas State earlier in the year. Kentucky's lost 2 straight after getting blown out by Georgia and now getting blown out by the Missouri team. I know we've never been sold on Kentucky because they don't really have a quarterback and they're not really all that. What do you think? What do you think of Missouri? I mean, they're unranked, but I mean, they're 6-1 right now, which nobody expected Missouri to be 6-1. They got South Carolina going forward next week, and Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas. With Tennessee and I think they'll beat South Carolina. South Carolina's god awful. I think they'll beat South Carolina. They're god awful. I think they're done. But the Georgia and Tennessee is up in the air. Do you think that Missouri finishes at 10-2 for the rest of the season?
So I mean, they're ranked 20th actually, which is pretty nice for them, considering
I meant
recent.
before the game they weren't ranked, I think.
Nah, they were 20th last week too.
2020. Okay, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm with you. I think I'd lean them versus South Carolina. I don't think they lose only one game though. I mean, they've got a slaughterhouse for the 3 games in a row, in Georgia, Tennessee, and then they're lucky that they're playing Florida at home, because I think if they were playing Florida at Florida, I would take Florida probably 99 out of 100 times. Given that it's at home, though, I'm not quite sure, but I definitely think that they lose to Georgia. I understand they played it, as close as they could last year, but Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and then an Arkansas team who has definitely underperformed this year, but we just saw them put up a fight against Bama. So, I mean, I think they've got 4 games in a row. Well, I mean, they could definitely lose to South Carolina. Like, as much as South Carolina is unraveling a little bit, and I think not to put everything on Spencer, but I think a little bit too much is being put on Shane, as in the head coach, Shane Beamer. I think, it starts with your QB, and when you've got a QB that's a roller coaster, it's pretty hard to have consistent success. But that being said, that's definitely not just like a waltz through that game. I think it'll be a battle for sure. So they've got 5 games in a row here that they could lose. I don't think they'll lose 5 in a row, but I could see them dropping 3 of their last 5. But also at the same time, you look at, Kansas State, they weren't favored in that. They won that game. Well, then besides that, they should have been beating all the other teams that they're beating. Kentucky was a kind of a toss-up too, but you addressed it. We don't really trust the QB situation over in Kentucky. So, yeah, it's great that they're 6-1 right now, but I could definitely see them dropping 3 of their last 5.
Final game, Oregon State beats UCLA. Dante Moore's a freshman when he throws 3 goddamn picks. Carson Steele's the guy, but when you have 3 turnovers, Lord of mercy. The turnovers. Oregon State won the turnover battle. DJ Ualuge was not the problem at Clemson at all, because he goes to another team and is playing great. Their offensive total combined for about 400 plus yards. Oregon State is a team that could be in the Pac-12 championship. That depends on if USC loses another game, if Utah loses another game. By the way, they got Arizona after the bye week. They still play Colorado. I think they're going to beat Colorado. Stanford, don't underestimate Stanford because they beat Colorado. They still play Washington towards second to last game of the year. And then, of course, the day after Thanksgiving on Friday, they play Oregon. I think Oregon State could possibly win out and play for the Pac-12 championship. DJ Ualuge is playing out of his mind. I kept trying to tell people, all these spoiled Clemson, South Carolina fans, he wasn't the problem. Y'all blame the man and all this other stuff, and I'm not hating on Cade Klubnik, but he's playing way better than Cade Klubnik, and Clemson ain't even that good after he left.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm part of that group. I was definitely sleeping a little bit on Oregon State and what they can do. But I want to Dante Moore, true freshman.
Yes.
So I don't even know if he's turned 19 years old yet. He's going to be very good. I want that to be said. But I thought he would have a little bit on the ground to show, and he doesn't. And it's not all his fault. The O-line is not the best. He's been sacked 19 times. He's got negative 60 rushing yards this year. Now, obviously, a lot of that is from the sacks. But damn, you got to do something to produce a little bit on the ground when you're only throwing the ball 51%. He's had interceptions in 3 straight games, but you look at those 3 games for an 18-year-old, or let me check how old he is before I keep calling him that.
I'm going to guess he's 19.
Yeah, he's 18. He's 18. So for an 18-year-old, your last 3 games being Utah, and we know how good that Utah defense is, and then Washington State, who was on an absolute roll, and they won that game, to be fair, but he still threw 2 interceptions at 50%. And Utah, he threw an interception at 43%, and then this week he threw the ball 42% and 3 picks. So, like the first couple games of the year were nice at San Diego State, North Carolina Central. Those are nice tune-up games, and I think he'll be good in the future. I just think it's unfortunate that he's got to see all the fire right now, because he's throwing the ball, like I said, 50%. He's got 7 interceptions to 10 touchdowns. His rating's not bad. It's 130, but I think he's got some time before he's going to be a quarterback that's winning games for UCLA. And then over on the other side with Oregon State, DJ is a quarterback that can win you games. He's not going to be like a highly touted NFL guy, right? I mean, he's not the best passer. That's not like some breaking news thing, like he's not the most accurate passer or anything like that. But he is a quarterback that can win you games, and he's shown that this year. He's only turned the ball over 4 times. He's got a 160 passer rating. So I'm with you. DJ is nice. I was definitely sleeping on this Oregon State offense. I don't know if they're going to be in that final 2 teams of the Pac-12, but they're 3rd right now. So, I mean, it's very possible.
Well, that ends it for the college football stuff. Next episode, there were a lot of upsets in the NFL yesterday, all right? The 49ers, I know y'all bashing Brock Purdy. I didn't say he was an elite quarterback. I mean, he played awful. But injuries to Debo and McCaffrey doesn't help. I'm not using that as an excuse. We'll get into it later. What in the world is wrong with the Eagles? Now, I'm not surprised because the Eagles are very inconsistent, through 5 games, and they won where they're supposed to win. But, I mean, my God, Jalen Hurts, my God. He cost me a bet. You couldn't even get in the end zone. Now, the Jets' defense is legit. But when you throw 3 interceptions, and they were bad ones, one unlucky one where, he dropped the ball, whatnot. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts, my God. I mean, the Jets, really. Jets fans screaming, they back. We beat the Eagles. Oh, my God. So that'll be next. Aaron Rodgers' return timetable because he was throwing the ball. He could be back sometime this season. I mean, he's making magic happen. That'll be next. Lambo's Water Sports as far as NFL. And then who's the worst team in NFL? And then, of course, the Lions are the real deal. And the Jets' playoff hopes are still alive after beating Eagles team. And we'll let you know next. Lambo's Water Sports.